Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 2 of Luton Geeks Unplugged, Tech Tales and Agile Antics. Hopefully everyone's been keeping well, and look forward to today's episode with the title of The Path to a Digital Job is Changing. And welcome to my comrade, Darren Bolden. How are you doing today, Darren?
I'm really hot and bothered. Us Brits, anyone watching abroad, we don't do the heat, and it's only 26 to 28 Celsius in the UK at the minute, and it feels like it's Satan's armpits. I don't know about you.
It's horrible, and apologies for those listening. I referenced my accent last time. It's probably worse today because I've got the dreaded man flu. I'm man down. I'm struggling today, but yeah, the heat's not cool. I was in Pisa the other month, and even though it's hotter there, it felt cooler because of the breeze and stuff, and everywhere's aircon. Whereas, yeah, here we're not equipped in any shape or form, are we?
No, British heat is different as well.
Yeah, I always say this and get people look at me in a funny way, but it's more sticky.
Yes. Yeah.
So, quick recap for those who may not have heard our first episode. This vlogcast is just really aimed at anyone who has sort of an interest in digital and tech. And we hope to shine a bit of a light on some of the myths or misconceptions of what goes down in this industry, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there that perhaps may seem overwhelming or feel like there's not a clear path into the industry. So we're here just to perhaps lighten that sort of perception of things. So with that in mind, what we're going to be discussing today, Darren?
We're going to be talking about the path to a digital job or technical job or technology job or a career path. And I think it's a really important one. And it's a fun one for me and you, mainly because we've both taken very different paths to where we are today. And you hear some fantastic success stories of people stepping away from their current career and moving towards a technical career or another career. And some of it's actually easier than a lot of people think, is my belief anyway. And hopefully we'll have some guests talking about this who work in the recruitment world or who have also stepped away from their a career they've been in for a decade or more, like yourself, and moved into that career path. So what I thought I'd do is I would go first because it makes sense as I'm jabbering along, and how I fell into my current role. So mine's really boring in that from a young age as a kid, I always liked playing with technology. I always enjoyed anything technical or anything like a Game Boy or anything like that. And then we discussed, home PCs and stuff. Well, that was born when I was very little, in that my dad's friend actually built us our home PC. And he actually opened the sides off and discussed with me, and this is me like preteen, what each part did and its role. And at the time I was just, mesmerized, but like these electrons are doing stuff. And I continued to break it. And the guy had to come back and repair it many times because I was tinkering with it, right? So rather than I'm the kind of person that will play and see, cause and effect wise what would occur. This kind of, at the time, education wise, Jamie, you're probably the same. There wasn't much in the way from schooling, if you went through schooling in the 90s, to kind of accelerate that thinking. And especially in our area, it was quite poor. But I did manage to go to a technical college, which was great, and did a foundation degree in computer science. I had the opportunity to bump that to a full degree, but at the same time had applied via a family friend for a job, an organization based about 30 miles from where we lived, and they took me on as a young, 19, 20, I think I was 20, and they were a startup. Shout out to Blue Chip, they've been bought now, but I was employee 99 at the time. They just moved into a new building. Wow. And if you've ever worked at a startup, it's the best experience you'll ever get, because there's not big processes to stop failure, or big, huge organization that can ensure that things don't happen. Things do happen, but you learn really quickly and you adapt and you're nimble. I'm not going to use the word agile for those things. And the organization was moving away from break fix technology hardware to managed services and data centers. And I was there for 10 years, I think, in total. And I had numerous different jobs at Blue Chip, and it's now ServiceNow. They were bought. But I had a fantastic time. And the big thing there was the culture. It was because it was a startup and because it was almost family run, you just felt like people didn't want you to fail. It was a huge amount of togetherness. I'm still friends with a lot of people that work there now. And just awesome, awesome place to work at the time. But I felt like there was something missing, an itch needed scratching, and an opportunity showed itself in me doing a similar role, but for big enterprise. So big organizations, big global, national, international systems integrator knocked on my door and offered me a role at a company called CenturyLink. It used to be Savis. And they were like one of the first kind of private cloud organizations. And that was I was there for 5 and a bit years. That was a great experience as well. Really good fun. And the same thing, there was a small team that focused on cloud and that kind of technology rather than networking. And culturally, they're really similar to Blue Chip, actually. Although they were enormous, there was a culture of togetherness, and there was people that I worked with. They know who they are. The likes of JB Tyler, I'll probably tag him in this now. Adam DeVal, Amit Dalvi. Those people are still in a WhatsApp group with them as well, because they're just lovely human beings, but also really know their shit as well, which is really
which always helps. Yeah,
which always helps. But no question was a stupid question, and they were happy to engage and talk to you and talk about the industry and the sector. And they've all gone on to have fantastic careers elsewhere as well. And then as the pandemic was ramping up and then ramping down, I was looking for more of a public cloud specific role from an advisory perspective. And there was a couple of organizations I really admired. I don't know if there's I know Spotify's a big one, right? From a digital tech perspective, right? There's loads. So there's a handful of those kind of organizations I really admired. One of them was Cloudreach. So born in a pub in London, everyone knew it. I actually listened to the podcast. One of the reasons I reached out to Jez and Dave Chapman at the time was because of the podcast for a role at Cloudreach. And I'm not ashamed to admit that either. And stepped into a role at Cloudreach within their advisory group. And it's great. It's been a great place to work. And the last year, everyone's who knows me has seen, or knows the organization, has seen that they were acquired by Atos, and then have become Evident as part of a split that's very public. So we're going through another piece of change. What's great about that is it is Luton Town Orange, the organizational corporate colors. I did actually check the hex, the code you get.
Yeah.
And it isn't far off either. So it's I've got
to do some code changing to make it
exactly the same.
See if anyone notices.
See if anyone notices. Yeah. So yeah, mine was really traditional in that all my qualification steps, all my process was kind of almost geared to that from a very young age to, this is interesting. And then you kind of fall into roles. And one thing I've noticed is in technology, you can just say yes and people will let you do stuff, which there's a lot of more trust, I find. So mine's boring. But I remember many moons ago, before you stepped into digital, we had a few conversations about you wanting to change careers. So I'm interested now to hear yours, because I've never heard it from start to finish.
Yeah.
done this story many times in interviews around
Yes.
your CV and stuff. So this is much more interesting, and also heartfelt that anyone who's looking for a career change or job change, or thinks actually technology might be, or digital might be a place I want to work. So I'm going to open the floor up, and you
Thank you.
can tell us all about the crazy career.
It's a meandering one, so but firstly, I'm not saying this because anyone who does know me well knows I'm quite blunt. Your story is not boring at all. I find it fascinating. Like there's so many questions that I think people will probably have about sort of how you sort of, did you start off thinking you'd end up where you are and stuff. So no, I think you're downplaying your sort of journey. But yeah, my one is a weird one. So going back, and there is a reason why I go back so far, and I'm probably people are going to start now calculating ages here. But back in 2008, I joined PGMOL. Now, not many people know that, but basically it's the official and professional referees organisation. And people normally think about the FA when they think about referees, but this is
just for
actually
context. The FA, anyone non
soccer.
soccer, yeah. So this is the referees in soccer. If you're watching in the US or outside the UK, yeah. Sorry.
Yes. No, thank you. It's probably I always slip into that sort of like the naming conventions of the organisations or governing bodies, but people think about the PGMOL and think that's going to be linked to the Football Association. It's not. It's owned by the Premier League. So that's something, again, that always confuses people. But basically, my role started out as just an admin bod, organising the annual conference where all the referees get together to talk about refereeing. It is actually interesting, despite what people might initially think. And take complaints from managers, which on a Monday morning was not fun. I had...
So this is professional sport, Premier League,
right?
And the managers of these multi-million and now billion-pound organisations, their managers are complaining to you. Is that right?
So they ring on a Monday. I think that my line manager at the time just got me in just to do that because they had done it for so long, and I don't blame them. And I'd just be sat there, and they weren't like they were never at me, because I think that'd be crossing the line. But it wasn't the most pleasant thing to be sat on a Monday morning and just literally be barked at for an hour sometimes. But they always would end it politely, and say like, "Oh, nice to speak with you. Thanks for giving your time." And I was like, "No worries. Here all week for that." And then it just sort of evolved. Got a new general manager in who wanted to modernise how refereeing was sort of looked at across the English game, not just in the Premier League, but right through the pyramid system. And we looked to build an internal system, but then it also spoke to the football clubs and the governing bodies. So it was a way of how clubs could report on referees and provide feedback, but also try and communicate and understand more why referees may have made a decision. Referees would then be uploading their match reports, but also there would be areas of communities between referees where sometimes decisions would be discussed, because even referees will have a different view of it, even though there's rules. So it's really fascinating, and we had put ourselves in a really big pickle in a sense of from March we announced we were going to go live with this for the 2010-11 season for the first weekend in August, like kickoff. So the minute you say that to clubs, that's like you're throwing yourself out there, especially in that sort of industry. People who think about football, it is cutthroat, it is
soccer, yeah.
And we had to, it wasn't just like talking to referees, it was basically product management. I didn't know, but I was going to clubs going, what do you need from day one? What do you want this to do? Referees, the assessors who are ex-referees marking the referees and all this stuff. And so many things had to be factored in. Dealing with a third-party company who were doing development, who had previously only worked for clubs or sometimes rugby. So it's a very bespoke system. And very proud that basically we got it live and got good feedback. And I then became, from just administrator, systems and extranet administrator. So that was like the moment. And then I'm going to name drop for a moment because I'm proud of this. Basically, I built up a good rapport with the clubs, and Man United got in touch one day and just said, look, we want to modernise our admin department, and we like what you do. Would you consider coming for a role here? I'm an Arsenal fan, so I did see it as a chance to destroy it from within. And I think if people look at the time frames, I joined in 2011, I leave in 2015. Just look at it. I think I did a great job.
Mission complete.
Yeah,
If you follow sport, definitely. If you don't follow sport, just Google it. Jamie joins their performance within the Premier League dips. So he does deliver.
Yeah, I do. Like, I was there for their last Premier League title. They've not won one in a decade since. So I think that speaks volumes of my skill set. Kind of felt like Liam Neeson going in there. I always will get a film reference. But yeah, and I went there and it was an eye-opener. I was based at a training ground. Moved to Manchester from Luton. I hadn't gone away for uni, so it was a big culture shock in that sense. And my first sort of remit of the job was handling their whereabouts stuff. So the people who get outside sports, doping is a very serious thing, obviously, in sporting conditions and environments. But the FA in the English leagues, football associations, do actually do a really good job. I'm going to really shout that out. They take it a lot more seriously than some other organisations, and quite meticulous on it. And Man United had issues with it in the past with some of their players, not doping to be clear, but how they managed it and administered it. Because very short part of it, basically, a player in competition periods can be tested at any time of the day. So if a player's given time off in a week, but he's still under the first team squad's training schedule, he would have to give an address, and he could be in Dubai. And it has happened genuinely where someone will knock on the door at 2 in the morning in Dubai and go, "We're going to test you." So it is very serious stuff. So they brought someone in to be dedicated to that. And that also then threw me into the world of the players' dressing room and the coaching staff, because I had to understand the training schedules, their timelines and stuff like that. And I'll never forget my first day. Alex Ferguson stood me up in front of the players, and he was gripping my arm. I'll reference that for a reason in a minute. And he starts telling them, "This is Jamie. He's from Luton, so go easy on him." Got a few chuckles about that, because we keep referencing Luton, but anyone who has heard of Luton automatically has this mystique about it. And then said he's an Arsenal fan, and that was the point where I was like, "Oh, he's killed me here," because a lot of the staff, not the players, a lot of the staff are die-hard Mancunians, and if some of them, like, there's a woman who's been on reception who's coming up to her 70th year working there. Just think about that for a moment. Seen everything. And there's this lad from Luton who's an Arsenal fan coming in to look after the players. So I could see the faces. But the reason I referenced the arm thing was he then started getting quite aggressive, as he does. He's known, Alex Ferguson, for a thing called the hairdryer. So again, people can Google that if they don't know their sport. And he starts getting serious, but not with me, but he's like saying, "He's here to do a job, so don't you effing muck him around." It's really, and because he's getting agitated, my arm's getting hard and like squeezed, and I'm like standing there. I think people were laughing because I could see my face, because it was actually beginning to hurt me. But I just didn't have the conviction. Well, I think it's probably wise to say, "You're hurting me." So that was my initial introduction. And then from there, just day to day, I would get dressed down on my fashion sense. Like if you'd go in thinking, I look meticulous today. No one can pull this outfit out. And then they would mock you for your socks. And then that was it the whole week. Sock man, or there'd be something. And yeah, and from there, just started to look at what we could do to improve their processes, because they were a very high performance club. I joked about how they've dropped off, but they're one of, if not the biggest clubs in the world from a branding and sort of history point of view. It hurts me to say that as an Arsenal fan, but it's true. And it came across that basically some of them were outdated, their processes, like capturing players' contracts. Some of it was like on templated documents, scanned, which will blow people's minds.
Today it will. Yeah.
Passports, because they go on tours a lot during pre-season, and you have to have visas sometimes, again, in a lever archifold scan. So then you'd have to get the player to remember to bring it in to make sure he has enough pages, or it's in date and stuff like this, or there wasn't an issue with it. And it just seemed so complex. But also you had a lot of, and I'm going to say the word silos, but you had the medical department, the finance department, the scout, all talking to different systems. So we looked to introduce an internal system that not only houses everything about the player, from height, weight, addresses, it would have passport alerts. So then the administrator for the travel would know there's an alert on this player to renew in good time. They could set up alerts. It could export data around players and yellow cards, but also what referee had booked him, because then you can start to look at.
You see, real good data, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I thought I'd throw that one in, because that's a crowd pleaser in an interview, because everyone does think you've not done product in football, because it's now becoming more common. But when I started out this journey, and I got to a point where I hit a ceiling there, and that's not bragging. I got Employee of the Month for that. And the colleague who helped deliver me, I'll reference that because they did as well. They did a great job. And again, we delivered it. We started in May. We delivered it for August when Van Howard came.
New manager, yeah.
Louis Van Gaal again.
Yeah.
Google him, and you'll see so many. He's a fascinating man. But we delivered and got rewarded. But I felt like there wasn't a clear role to do that stuff again. We could obviously optimize it, improve it, make enhancements. But in terms of where I could go next, it's either I'd become the club secretary, which was very much more legal in a sense, dealing with contracts, bonuses, and set like very kind of mathematic in a way, but also worrying about everything across the whole first team remit from travel and stuff. So it just didn't feel like it's something I wanted to continue. So I thought I'd take a gamble. I went into the women's football and joined Liverpool ladies. And again, secret agent at that time, Brendan Rodgers has got close to winning the Premier League. I come in, he then gets sacked. The ladies team had won back-to-back women's Super League titles. I come in, they don't. So I definitely did a...
It's the JB effect.
Yeah, and then also what was really good is obviously, again, anyone who does know football know how much of a very, I'd say, harsh sort of feeling there is from Man United to Liverpool. So again, announcing at Man United, I'm leaving and I'm also going to your biggest rivals. That went down an absolute storm. That, and then a family event happened, and at that point, I just thought I hit a bit of a crossroads, and I thought family comes first. And I was getting lonely, I was getting homesick, if I'm honest. So I thought I'll move back down south, and in that time, started to assess my career, and I wasn't enjoying the nature of it. Like in terms of the more football stuff, it's not glamorous, and I will dispel that myth. There's some really great things, and I experienced some amazing things that I will take with me and impart that to my family, like my children, because some of the things I got to witness, like Alex Ferguson, one of the greatest managers, being in there and sort of having him call me Rick Astley, like a nickname, which is fantastic feeling to have and stuff like that. But the actual mechanics of it, like being available like 7, 8 o'clock at night or on a Saturday morning, and
because the I guess the schedule is relentless.
It doesn't stop. And I was in a lesser role, so I wasn't always required on weekends. But when you get to that club secretarial, you're going to all the matches. And think about it, if you're in Newcastle on a Wednesday and then you're going down to Southampton on a Saturday, there is no break for that.
No.
And I spoke to my sister. I'm really lucky. We'll reference that. So Sarah, my sister, who has worked across product, has been a journalist, has done content work, and she just said, "What did you like doing in football?" And I sort of said about the systems I'd worked on. She went, "That's product management, product owning." So what is that? Didn't know anything. And I genuinely did. I don't care if people laugh at this. I got Agile Book for Dummies because I just wanted to understand it. I thought, actually, I could do this. But I faced challenges. I was going for roles and I'd get, it's not as glamorous as football. We won't pay you as well. You won't enjoy, or you haven't worked in Scrum, sorry. And this is why I'm quite passionate about doing this podcast, so people can realise you can do it. I was in my 30s. I went to Millwall, which that was an eye-opener. But great club in the sense that they really do. They have a lot of stuff around them, but they do a lot in the community to try and improve that perception of the club. And was one of the youngest assistant club secretaries in the whole football pyramid. I was only 30, and I was quite proud of that achievement. So I still kept thinking, you've just taken another football job. Keep going, try and get out of football. I then tried a little subway into the national team setup and try and be logistics and managing travel and stuff again. Just kept thinking, now's it. You're 30, I think 32. 32, yeah. You've got to make a decision. It's now or never. So I stepped into UK Sport and was then handling some of their event stuff, but again, looking at systems. And then an opportunity came up at TUI. Very big, one of the biggest, if not biggest, European travel companies. And I thought when I went in there, they knew my knowledge. I'm always transparent and honest to a full, and said, like, I've not worked in Agile. I do not know half of it. But what I can tell you is I know how to work with people. I've got a different way of approaching things because of when I was in football. One of the biggest things that was ingrained for me was that honesty.
Yeah.
Even if you deliver something that someone doesn't like to hear, you're honest, because that's where you get the biggest sort of trouble in football. And I've worked with so many different cultures, players from Spain, Mexico, South Korea, Japan. So again, could really work with different people, different backgrounds. And I thought they'd throw me on a little bit because it's a contract role. I thought they'd go, here you go, and let's just test the kid here. kid. I wasn't a kid. I try and make out I am, but I'm not. And they threw me on the browse part, which on a holiday site, Darren, is the
It's big.
whole website bar,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
it's huge. And I struggled. I sucked. I was awful first 3 months, didn't have a clue what I was doing. But then I just took a step back, did debate going back into football because I've got a lot of contacts in that world. But I thought, come on, you can do this. And started to talk to each discipline and try and understand what they do more day to day, but what do they want from a product owner? What did they feel would help them achieve? And again, maybe that's different to what other people, because it got a really good perception, like they used to being told from about this is what we're doing. I was actually involved in them, and my first 2 releases then got me awards, and I got offered a role there. And this isn't to slight any other discipline in Agile. If anyone reads stuff that I post on LinkedIn, I will happily promote any discipline. I'm not saying that product's the be all and end all. It's not. I'll happily dispel that thought process. But I was offered a role as a QA, and I just thought, I've taken so long to get out of football. Like, you've gone through a journey here, stick to it. So I took a role as a junior at EE. So I went back a step in a sense. And EE is a great company. Loved my time there. Progressed into major launches. So totally started out on the upgrade journey and ended up like delivering, helping to deliver their new benefits, which is where you get things like BT Sport as part of the phone package.
Yeah.
And then started to feel a lot more confident in what I was doing and my mindset and how the feedback I always get is, you're different, you're not pretentious, you talk to stakeholders, which I take as a massive sort of compliment. And I still have sometimes imposter syndrome now, because I'm probably not the most technical in some ways, I think, but I'm honest about that, which then I think helps. And then I went to 10 Lifestyle, which is a online concierge, so totally different. And that's what I always try and do. If I do move roles, I try and go for a different industry, because there's nothing wrong with being a expert within travel, or I don't know, within telecommunication. Nothing wrong, that's fantastic. But I think I could go, I've done football, and I tell you now, there's things I've done in football that I could link to telecoms practices and conventions. And then from 10 I went to Reach, who owned the Daily Mirror, and worked on a dogs community site, which amazing. And to back you up, that was very much like a startup. Even though it's under a big company umbrella like Reach, they had gone into a new sort of area called niche sites, and it was tough, but it was a whirlwind, and I learned a lot. From my development team, who are fantastic, so I'll shout out to them. They were great support, and then that's when I was like, right, this is the career I would definitely feel most at home in. And I've worked for Cans, who do the marketing and vessel creativity, and now I'm currently at Tusker, who are in the auto trading industry. So a myriad of roles that have brought their own challenges, but again, I would say definitely consistent themes. So you sort of like said you had a traditional one, but what have you seen as consistent themes, would you say, sort of within your world?
From a tech perspective, the client or the customer or whoever you're engaging with, they tend to want the same thing. They want to go faster, quicker, better, cheaper, right? That's from a job perspective. Every job I've landed in, I'm always concerned and have imposter syndrome, and I genuinely think you need that, because it spurs you, to bust a gut in that role for a period of time.
Yeah, I agree.
And what I mean by a period of time, I mean is initially your learning curve is always quicker, because you're prepared to listen. And the one thing I have learned, and I don't know about you, is there's very few people that want you to fail. Because everyone wants you to be successful, because it helps them generally. As well. So they're the like themes that I've seen. I don't know. Yours is interesting because you can link them. I've always been in tech, so I can always link them to different sectors. But you've actually genuinely worked in different sectors, and not for the technology department, without knowing it, right? And that role in the FA, where you're taking managers who is their professional teams played at the weekend, you're taking feedback. That is genuine 101 like product management.
It
right?
It is.
So you were being kind of bled into it. without even knowing that it's something. And I think that's where the industry has or sector has an issue whereby they don't always see that there's completely transferable skills.
Yes, yeah, 100%, and absolutely right. And I'm so grateful for that experience because, like I say, I won't go too down memory lane in stories, but I actually did lie to a manager once. I panicked on a Monday morning and absolutely flapped and lied, and then quickly learned you do not do that. And that again, like I say, I've had to tell many stakeholders we're not delivering something on next day and disappointment, but I've told them, given them enough notice and explained why, but then what can we do to maybe fix that? But some of the themes I've seen that I think are definitely consistent, and I'd say football's getting better at it now because I'm starting to see companies, but there's a lot of companies who will offsource football clubs, that will offsource their websites to sort of digital companies, and I'm like, that's a massive opportunity there to like reach your fan base. But the themes I've seen is that sort of link between tech, digital, and the business. And it's not a criticism of anyone there. It's not. COVID has accelerated it massively because I think there still was a bit of not ignorance, but we'll come out of this. We'll still need retail, but actually no, we need to be better digitally. We need to have better touch points, and it's great, but there's still massive challenges where, and I referenced this last week about the North Star, but people will say the jargon from our industries and you'll get a business person sitting there go, what the hell are you talking about? But then you'll get to be balanced. You'll then get a business person read something about Agile and think, I'm getting that in 2 weeks. I'm getting something built. I'm getting a new journey.
Or whatever. Stuff. Yeah, it'll be here for me.
Exactly.
It's not.
I think that's definitely something that I've seen as a reoccurring theme. That's the most consistent one, I think. But that leads nicely, I feel. That's a good segue. I think we're getting better at this into the what we would call sort of, I'd say, our end of the episode sort of light touch is what I will reference this as. But it's
light touch.
Yeah, is what grinds my gears.
You know what really grinds my gears?
I'll ask you.
Dan, you want me to go first? So I thought about this as we were recording a week apart. And one that it annoys me at the minute, or has annoyed me in the last few months, or not longer than that actually, it's annoyed me for a long time, is hearing someone who is engaged with a project or a program of work use the term "we need to pivot," or "we need to pivot to do this." Or we need to pivot to do this. And it's normally with good intention. And what they actually mean is we need to look at how we're measuring performance or delivery. We need to look at what we're doing within this technical thing or this plan or whatever's happening. From a leadership perspective, we need to look at that, and we need to look at moving and changing direction. And always have a plan. That's great. And always, be prepared to adjust it. But throwing that out there, this is not an episode of Friends, pivot.
That's what I kept hearing.
We need to pivot. That was the one that frustrates me the most, because 9 times out of 10 people agree and then they carry on doing exactly what they've been doing.
There's no pivoting.
It doesn't occur. You can't get the sofa up the stairs, Friends style. So what's yours, Jamie, this week?
The gear grinding. Going to keep saying that phrase until it catches on, I hope. It's recruitment process. And I want to be clear, this is an attack on recruiters. I actually will defend recruiters in some aspects. I think they get a harsh rep. I've actually done a LinkedIn post, mate. I will drop that in there. It's more about how it's become more of a stressful process. Like, going for a job is stressful for everyone. I think the manager trying to find the right person to come into his team, of course, and the recruiter to try and find that person, and then the actual candidate. But the things that I'm seeing is there's the main one, because there's a few themes within this. The main one I find is respect. Now, I'm not delusional in the sense of, if I apply for a role, there could be thousands going for that role. I don't expect feedback. I don't expect someone to do some sort of analysis on why my cover CV didn't make the grade. But most places now, will have application, which may involve a cover letter. Not just a cover letter, why are you good for the role? What could you bring to this company? And then rigorous sort of like questions about your background and your history and stuff. So you go through that. Then you'll have maybe an initial interview with the line manager, or even an internal recruiter first.
Yeah.
Then you'll have an initial line manager, if you have that recruiter one, and then you'll have maybe another one with a couple of other people in different areas. Then you'll have a takeaway assignment, which normally is a PowerPoint where we're having issues with this. How would you resolve it? And it could be up to 2 hours. And I'm sat there going, that's a lot. And for someone who has a day-to-day job, like, to do that as well and give that sort of passion and energy to it is it's not easy. But then to get to that final stage, and we're talking, unless anyone dispels this, I'm going with 5 max, because if you're saying that the final stage is roughly 2 hours and you've already done 3 stages of other people, you, as the hiring manager or hiring team, do not have that much time. You cannot be going across 5 people that much. So then to get to the final stage and see someone's done a presentation and invested in trying to like bring some ideas to your company, to then send them an automated email telling them they did not get the role, is just, it lacks respect. And I will call that out, because I think that's just poor. That to me, you don't have to do war and peace in terms of feedback, but you can just give them a bit of insight. So then you're helping them, because if anything, they might have helped you. Their presentation might have given you an idea. So it needs to be, to me, respectful and beneficial in that sense. But there's other things, like I say in my post, that themes that have come from that I would say definitely grinds my gears.
It makes it less personal. I always think if someone asks, do you think I'll progress? You should be direct with them and say, look, I'm not going to progress you because I don't feel you're right at this right time. These are things you should look at. We're really bad. British people are really bad at that, and we will hide behind automated emails. So
no, we will. And
we will.
I witnessed it in my football career, where there's certain nationalities that are a lot more direct, a lot more blunt, and would walk into a room, and I'm not joking, this is a genuine example, but like, this is effing shit, and you see the person very first, excuse me, they go, this is Man United, is this not shit? And then they're like, well, it's not, it's shit then, isn't it? And then you're like, yeah, it's shit. And then I started to realise, I don't talk to people like that, but I'm like, we are very shy as a nation.
We're bad at it. I work with Dutch people, and they're very blunt with their feedback, but it feels refreshing at times. We have to get better at it. Yeah,
I've never come across that coming from a bad place, from someone doing it from a bad place. They are doing it to like try and improve.
Let's make it better. Yeah.
And that's how they see it. But yeah, some good gear grinding there. I think people will be perhaps pleased to hear that the next episode we'll be having a guest, because they probably want to hear a different voice. So that's something to look forward to. As always, thank you for listening. It's been an enjoyable episode, Darren, actually. I feel like
it was good.
Yeah.
Everyone likes talking about themselves.
Yeah, they do. They may not admit it, but they do. They absolutely do. So yes, thank you to everyone for listening. As always, connect on LinkedIn. We're always happy to chat, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.